Hey, friends, welcome back to the Live with Audacity podcast. You're listening to episode 28. Wow, how the heck are you? It has been a while since I've put a new episode out, but as you can imagine, things have been kind of wild here as it has been for everyone else with the drama of COVID-19. We started out on spring break and finished with an additional 1-month quarantine so far. So, how are you feeling during this whole ludicrous pandemic situation we're going through right now? I know it's scary and unprecedented, and everyone is having a hard time. And I'm sure you're totally sick of hearing about it too. So, I'm going to move on. I hope this podcast episode hits you right at the perfect time because what my friend Roger is doing is so powerful. On today's episode, I get to talk to Roger Duong, the genius behind the Buckets Project. The Buckets Project is a podcast where Roger interviews people he admires and respects to find out how they would spend their perfect day and then has them separate their activities from their day into 4 buckets. They discuss the why and how each activity is chosen, and then he challenges them to spend their time every day filling those buckets, even if they can't always live their perfect day. You're listening to the Live with Audacity podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Stewart. Audacity is defined by Merriam-Webster as intrepid boldness or disregard for normal constraints. And that's exactly what we have here. The Live with Audacity podcast is aimed at giving you the courage to explore your someday dreams, do things your way, and start making things happen in your life right now. I'm a mama to 4 kiddos ranging from college student to kindergartner, wife to a high school football and track coach, and a multi-passionate entrepreneur. Together with my guests, we're going to teach you how to live with audacity and intentionality, discover and utilize your unique skills and talents, and step into who you are meant to be in order to make your someday dreams a reality. Are you ready? Here we go. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning back into the Live with Audacity podcast. I am so excited about today's episode, and I know, I say that every single week, but I truly am really excited about this one because I get to have my newest friend, Roger Duong, on. He is the mind behind the Buckets blog, and Roger, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I'm so excited to talk to you about this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about tell us about your blog and podcast and how you really decided that this seemed like something that you wanted to do.
Well, so when I got out of college, I was previously a teacher for a few years, and my degree was actually in engineering. So I got out of teaching and went into engineering. And once I did that for about 6 to 7 years, I was still unhappy, and it paid the bills, so I quit. But I got to a point where being safe, having that paycheck and those benefits was not enough. And even though I have a family to provide for, I was so unhappy that it wasn't necessary. And I think the word necessary just grew its own definition as the older I get. And it got to a point where I just up and quit. And when I quit, I thought, well, what am I going to do to find the next career or the next business or whatever the next venture is? And by doing so, I wanted to have a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and I could go into my own phone book and come up with uh, dozens of names that I had really deep, thought-provoking conversations with, and I just called them. And once I called the first 2 or 3, and we talked for an hour and a half, they said, why don't you just start a podcast and find out what you could really learn from other people? Because I'm sure other people are having the same issue. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and so I did. I recorded all the conversations, and having the engineering background that I had, I knew that there had to be some sort of plan. I couldn't just randomly call people up and say, "Hey, let's just talk for an hour and a half." And whenever I thought of the podcast, or whenever the idea of the podcast came to me from a friend, they said, if I'm going to have a show, I want to be able to have a person per week. And so, in order to do that, that's 52 people, 52 weeks in a year. And I came up with 52 names, and I started calling them up. And I told them, like, "Hey, we're going to have a conversation about this question, and the conversation that we're going to have will be recorded, and sooner or later it'll show up on this podcast. And whenever I'm ready to pull the trigger on the podcast, I will already have 52 episodes in the toolbox before the show even starts." And so it's working out. I'm
Wow.
currently on episode 15, and I have enough episodes to cover the rest of the year. And I've learned so much from all these conversations that I've had.
What is the number one thing that you have learned from your guests? Like, what's the
I have
one
learned
resounding message that you've gotten from them?
I have learned that people essentially just want two things. They want the power of choice, and they want simplicity. So I'm not sure if you've listened to the podcast or if any of your guests have, but the podcast asks one question. The question is, if I gave you the opportunity to design your perfect day, that's 24 hours. You list out everything that you want to do, and don't think about money, don't think about responsibility, logic, anything like that. Just plan it out, write it down, and then take all those things that you wrote down, 20, 30 things, and categorize them into 4 buckets. That's why it's called the buckets blog. But those 4 buckets essentially tell you the why behind everything that you chose to do in that perfect day. And the resounding answer that from your question is, really, people want the power of choice and the simplicity of life. They don't want mansions. They don't want um, their own planes. They don't want millions and millions of friends like they do on Instagram. They just want they just want simplicity. They want to be able to spend time with their family and friends. And if they want to travel, they'll travel, but they don't need, golden planes or anything like that. And so that has been the key to success that I've been or key to happiness that leads to success that I've been searching for so long.
I love it. So, are there like 4 buckets that you've picked out and said, "Put those things in these buckets," or they come up with their own 4 buckets?
They come up with their own. So there's 2 approaches they usually take. Is, okay, we'll take this hour and we'll line out every detail of the day, and it almost paints a picture of their perfect day, which is kind of cool. And they take every little detail. Like, I woke up without an alarm clock at 6:30. Well, that's kind of weird. Most people don't wake up without an alarm clock at 6:30, but okay. And then they'll say, I'll get a cup of coffee, and my spouse will be with me, and we'll jump on a plane to Argentina, and we'll spend the rest of the day there hiking, and our family will fly over whenever it's convenient, stuff like that. And then at the
Yeah.
end of that we'll talk about, okay, here's how all those things categorized into 4 buckets. You wanted freedom of choice of when to wake up. You wanted to travel, which is why you got on a plane. You wanted time with family because they showed up at Argentina. So that's one approach. The other approach was, here are my 4 buckets. My 4 buckets are family, traveling, and time with. I'm sorry, what was that? Yeah, time with family, traveling, and
Choice.
choice. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, brain fart. So then they give me the 4 buckets, and then they allow me to really dissect what it is that they would choose to do with those buckets. And so it's very interesting to see, like, you in a typical day, everybody complains that they have a million things to do. They don't have time for this. Their schedule is so busy and jam packed. But if you really think about what's important to them, they'll start to see that all the things that they schedule to do are not anywhere close to the things that make them happy. So what are you really doing, right? If you're so busy with a million things, what are the actual things that contribute to your buckets? And a lot of them say, no, I don't know. I mean, I'm wasting my time. Well, yeah. I mean, of course you're wasting your time. I wasn't the one who told you that you're wasting your time. You figured that out, and that's part of the self-discovery of this conversation. And uh, if you know your buckets, and we're not talking about a million buckets,
Hmm.
we're talking about four, which is a manageable number. Then the rest of your life, as you spend your days, you are more focused on just filling these four things, which also gives you a sense of gratitude. Like, even though I have a million things, I'm still grateful that I can satisfy these four things, because these four things are the most important things in my life. And that is the premise of the conversation.
I love it so much. And so within these conversations of with the people that you're having them, have they come to any mind-blowing revelations in their lives? Have they changed anything in their lives since having the conversations with you?
Yes. So I was previously, like I said before, I was previously a teacher and I was previously an engineer. And my last day as an engineer was 4 weeks ago. The day I left was January 3rd, which is a Friday. And two people that I had the buckets conversation with quit their jobs the next week.
Oh my
They were
gosh.
unhappy with what they were doing. They saw that I was unhappy with what I was doing, and I made a decision to change that. And so they did the same thing. And it's so weird because these were two people that, even though we had the conversation, I never got um, the conclusion that, they really hated their job. It was more of, they just don't love it, right? And so when they saw me do something that, even though I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, that is enough for me to quit and try to do something that I actually love. And then I get a text that following Wednesday and says, "Hey, I just quit."
Oh my
And
gosh.
I already know what their buckets are, so I know exactly what they're going to do to fill their day to be happy. I don't know how they're going to make money. That's not the issue. That's not the conversation. I don't even know how I'm going to make money, but I know that happiness doesn't have a paycheck to it. Now, when you're happy first, then the paycheck will follow. And I think that's why you started this whole thing as well, is find something that you are truly passionate about, enthusiastic about, and have faith, and the paycheck will follow. And I think they felt that same vibe as well.
Man, I love that so much. Oh, that's so cool. And so, have they had any obviously they've had the revelations that they're not doing something that they love. Have they come up with any, new business ideas or anything like that since that you know of? I mean, I know it hasn't been that long, but
Right. Yeah.
curiosity.
I know that one of them had multiple interviews laid out at companies they actually want to work for. And I said,
Yeah.
"Well, how do you know you wanted to work for those companies?" And they said, instead of looking for the positions, they looked for the mission statements of the company. I was like, "Oh, game changer, right?"
Game
And
changer.
game changer. Like, I don't, I noticed the same thing in myself. Is as I'm going through job boards and listings, I'm not looking at positions and responsibilities anymore. I'm looking at, what are the mission statements of the company, and can I buy into it? And I think, as an employer, the person who's running the company, that's the same thing that you should be doing, is trying to find employees that match your mission statement, the why behind everything. And once you have someone who lines up with the why, then that is how you create a sustainable business and sustainable teams. And what a great approach for them to start researching companies in that way. Whereas before, they were probably doing what I was doing and chasing the biggest paycheck.
Right. And I think too, if you can approach a company and say, hey, I might not have all the experience that I need, or I might not have all the skills, but I can totally support you and get behind what you believe in, and I will be your biggest cheerleader because I believe in what your mission is. I think that is so huge, and you can really bring on the, like you said, bring on the right people that are going to essentially do your word of mouth marketing for you. Because if they can get behind your mission, then they're already your biggest fan. So if you can employ your biggest fans, then there you go. You're on the right track.
Absolutely. And the book that comes to mind when you were kind of talking was that Angela Duckworth book called Grit. Have you ever read that one?
I have not.
Okay, so what it says is that talent is not the driving force for employers anymore. They're not looking. They shouldn't be looking for talent. They should be looking for people who have the personal characteristics of grit, resiliency, persistency, and those are the characteristics that really drive a sustainable employee, because you can teach anybody talent, or you can teach anybody skill. And
Mhm.
if they have talent, that's great too. But if they don't have those intrinsic characteristics, then either A, they won't line up with your mission and they'll leave, or B, they'll take their talents elsewhere. And that's not what you want. You want people who are going to buy into the why of everything that you do, so that you can grow a business together. And that's another reason why the Buckets Project was so important to me.
I also think too that when you can focus on approaching a company for a position, when you can get behind their mission, it will so like I feel like you can have grit, and then there are times when you don't have grit. I feel like you have way more grit and way more persistence and way more enthusiasm when you can get behind something that you truly believe in. You know, if I go work for a company like, I don't know, I can't even think of anything off the top of my head, but if I went and worked for a company that I didn't really align with what their mission is, then of course I'm not going to have grit. Of course I'm not going to have that persistence or that enthusiasm to push and, want to be better in that position, because I just don't resonate with what they're doing. But if I find a company that I do feel like that about, then there's nothing you could do to keep me from having those qualities for that company. I feel like you got to find the right place that you can get behind and that you believe in, and then it brings those qualities out of you. Am I
Absolutely, I
okay?
agree. And not even with companies. I mean, if we even go back to the original Buckets project, if my bucket is family, and I know that I work a job that I really, really do not enjoy, but I'm providing for my family, which is this was a lot of people's responses, is that I work a job, I don't really love it, but it really does pay for food on the table and smiles to my little girls' faces, right? if if you know that this is the why I'm doing this job and the why is my family, then when the job really does suck and I have a really bad day, then it allows me to have that grit to keep going for the next day. And although, I mean, I personally would disagree with people who say that, I'm just working this job to provide for my family. um, I completely empathize with the why behind their decision to continue working that job. Now, there are other means to providing for your family, of course,
Mhm.
but the why I can definitely get on board with. And same thing with companies. I'm kind of pushing that back. Is uh, if you want me to push papers, but I believe in your mission, I'll do it. You want me to clean toilets, I'll do it, as long as I believe in the mission. And if your mission is not clear, then that is probably a lot of the reasons why many of these companies have high turnover.
Yeah.
If that, yeah.
Yeah, I
But anyways,
totally agree.
went on a big tangent. Sorry.
I know. No, 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 no. I'm glad we did. That's exactly what we're here to do. So, I wanna know, what are your 4 buckets and what is your perfect day?
Yeah. So as far as I'll kind of take my own strategy. My own strategy was let's go from the bottom up, right? If I've had 4 weeks to live my perfect day. Luckily, I haven't had any major bills come up, so I'm not like influenced by money. And luckily, the things that I love to do don't require a lot of money. So let's put that aside. The perfect day for me has been a lot of waking up without an alarm, making coffee, getting my kids ready for school and taking them to school, not relying on my wife to do it like I have when I was working, because I used to rely a lot on my wife and my mother-in-law and the babysitter and all that. But now I get to take hold and control of getting my kids together and spending time with them purposely. And so I take them to school. When I'm done, I get to go, um, I get to work out. I work out. Really big into endurance sports and challenging myself in different ways. So if I want to go for a 12-mile hike, I'll go do that. And that takes up, 4 or 5 hours of the day. And I'll come eat lunch. I'll read my book because I love reading. And And then when it's time to pick up the kids, I'll pick them up. I'll make dinner for my wife. She'll come home. We'll sit in front of at the table and have dinner together, and we'll watch a Disney movie right after that. So the only thing that I didn't mention was the podcast. So the podcast I do work on as well. Maybe not every single day, just like I won't work out for 4 or 5 hours at a time every single day. But those are definitely things that bring me joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a journal that I wrote down for the past 31 days of everything that brought me joy and something that I was thankful for. And that would help me design my perfect career. And those are the things that I wrote down. Of course, the workouts look different, the time looks different, the movie's probably different. But essentially, those are the things that I did every single day for the past 31 days. Now, what they look like as buckets, it was, number one was that family time. And it wasn't just, okay, we're just going to be at the table. It was more of, what can I do? What experiences can I get? What knowledge can I get so that I can talk to my girls and my wife about at the dinner table? So I want to be able to teach them or mentor them or guide them in some sort of way so that this whole family as a unit continues to grow together. Not just me, not just my wife, not just my kids, but all of us together. That was the first bucket. Then the second bucket was being able to challenge myself physically and mentally. So, for instance, last week I went for a 5-day fast. I didn't eat for 5 days, and I just, not just because of the scientific benefits behind it, but it was more of a self discipline. Do I have the self discipline to ignore a big bag of chips or these freshly baked cookies that my wife just made? Yes, in fact, I do. And I was able to test myself in that way. And that's a big bucket of mine. And not just physically, but mentally. I have this goal that I want to read a book a week. And last year I read 43 books. And now this year I want to read 52. And just different ways to challenge myself physically and mentally. And that third bucket was the podcast. And that is more so of who can I connect with? And that's exactly what you're doing, is finding different people to connect with and share these conversations with. That is a huge bucket of mine. Being able to connect with people, people that I know, people that I don't know, and then being that person that really connects them to someone else, almost like a spider web. Like we can all just be one big community that passes on resources to each other. That
Yes.
really does bring me joy.
I love that.
And then that fourth bucket is all this, after all this is said and done, I want to be able to pass on something to someone else, whether that looks like a blog where I can pass on all the lessons learned, whether that's conversations where people can learn from, whether that's presentations where I can get in front of people and tell them everything I just learned from the last 52 people that I talked to. Um, just being someone that is able to pass down wisdom. That's my fourth bucket. So that's a long-winded to say that those are only 4 buckets, but those are the 4 things that I've identified for myself to bring me joy every single day. Now,
I
how I get paid for those things, I have no idea.
Well, so that's one reason that I wanted to do this podcast series, which I'm super excited about because I feel like people always hold themselves back when it's like they know that they're in the wrong place. They know they're not doing the thing that's bringing them joy or filling them up or, lighting their heart on fire. All the cliche sayings that aren't really all that cliche at all. But I feel like they know a lot of times that they're not doing the right thing or they're not doing the thing that they're called to do, and they just keep ignoring it because the main dark cloud that hovers over them is, how am I going to make money? What am I going to do for
Mhm.
money? I got to be able to provide for my family. So tell us a little bit about how you worked it out with between you and your wife that this is okay for right now, and that you can provide yourself enough time to figure out how this can come about.
Yeah, great question. So I think that the conversation that I had with my wife was, although it was very difficult, it is a reflection of our marriage. And what I mean by that is she is supportive in every crazy idea that I have because she knows that I am determined enough to get the idea going and be successful or fail. Like she's okay with me failing. she knows that if I fail, I know that, she knows that I've tried everything that I could, and I've tried to do businesses before. I've tried different jobs before, and I've always been transparent as to how I felt, how I was doing throughout all of that. And because she was on board with the communication and the characteristics that I've had, she knew that this is something that it's going to happen whether she likes it or not. But I made it clear that I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for our family. I can't come home unhappy and try to be some happy father for the rest of the day. Like I want to be happy every minute of the day, and some days are going to be harder than others. But if I can be a happy father and a happy husband, imagine what I could do with my undivided attention towards my kids, towards my wife, and how much of a unit we could be when I'm not divided, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And of course, there's compromise. So this we're in a very fun situation. So we have one on the way, which this will be our third child, and she's currently
Awesome.
at probably about 20 weeks. And 20 weeks without my income is going to be rough. So there is a compromise. Fortunately, I was a little smarter in my assets, and I was smarter on where I would get um, hidden income from. I basically hid it for myself. So this is one of those times where people talk about, if you're going to leave your job, make sure you have some sort of emergency fund. Well, thankfully, I subconsciously have a emergency fund all over the place, and it allows me a little bit of grace. So I'm still looking for a job. I'm still looking for a company to build, but I have given myself and this family a little bit of grace for the time being. And so it's stupid that I made the decision, but it's also a little bit smart of how I set it up
Yeah.
subconsciously.
I totally
Yeah.
agree. For us, I didn't know this is what I was working toward. I didn't know that this is I feel like this is what God kind of had in store and planned for us. Um, we were struggling to make ends meet, and we got rid of our big house with the big mortgage and all of those things. And then finally, about a year later, when we were renting, we had always been trying to move out to our property that we own, and we just couldn't figure out how to do it and pay off our bills and all these things. And we just felt so stuck for so long. And then finally, we had been talking about it for so many years. Finally, my husband was like, "Are we ready to actually do this right now? We can, go buy a brand new trailer. We'll put it on the property and we'll pay off our debt and yada yada, and we'll finally get to that place where we can build our home that we've always wanted." And I was like, "You know what? Yes, I'm just so ready. I'm so ready to just finally take those steps to be where we actually want to be, that we keep talking about and not making any progress toward those goals at all." And then, in a weird, form of circumstance, I was ready to I loved my job, but it was just stretching me to the ends of the earth, and I just couldn't manage that and all of my kids and all of their stuff and driving so much. And so it just was a really strange turn of events and coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences, but just a strange way that everything kind of lined up so that I could do this right now. So I think when you figure out that what you really want and you start working toward that, then things really start to line up for you, and different doors start to open that you didn't see before. So I think the way that you did it is the exact perfect way that you were supposed to do it, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think you touched base on it too. Is there is no right time. There's never a right time.
Ever.
And kind of a story um, that really resonates with me is when I was when I was dating my wife. We've been together 6 years, and I had a lot saved up, and I was saving up for marriage. But we've been together 6 years, and her best friends were like, "Well, when are you gonna propose to her? When are you guys gonna get married?" And I said, I'm not ready because I don't have enough money. And I'm almost positive there's a bunch of guys out there who are thinking the same thing. Like, I need to get my life straight before I go marry someone and be fully committed. That's probably what they're thinking. It's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And then one of her close friends, looked me point blank in the eye and said, I've been married a year and a half, or I've been married 2 years at the time. And she said, I don't care how much money you have in your bank right now, it's never enough. No matter how much time and money you think you need to have before you get married, it's not going to be enough. And that really hit me hard. And probably the next week is when I started planning out how I was going to propose and how we were going to get married. And I take that same mentality into a lot of what I do today. Is there's never a right time to do anything. Um, yeah, you can plan all you want, but if you're always planning, you're never executing.
Mm,
And
that's
and
good.
so that's a lot of the approaches that, good or bad, that's what I've been doing. Is I will find more pride in being able to execute everything that I say I'm going to do. And if I fail, I fail. But if I succeed, I have done way more than half the world, because half the world is still planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge. I love that. Man, that's really good. Um, okay, so tell me, sorry, I was thinking about something that I wanted to ask you while you were talking, and then I just got so caught up in all the words that you were saying and forgot what I was gonna ask you.
Happens to me all the time.
So, okay, so tell me about how did the idea really come about for the Buckets blog?
It was,
Like, how
I
did you
guess it
come
just
up with
started.
the buckets? Well, how did you come up with this
Oh
question
yeah,
to
yeah.
ask people?
Okay. The buckets. So everybody knows what a buckets list is. A bucket list is like 100 things that I want to do and cross off before I die, so that I can die happy. Right. The way I see things is, I'm not planning to die. Like, I'm not trying to cross off all these things and get them done before I die. What I'm trying to do is live. I'm trying to live happy every single day. And if I take those same buckets and fill them with things that bring me joy, and keep those same buckets visible every single day, then I know that everything that I actually do has to tie into those 4 buckets. And so I'm not kicking the bucket. I'm not trying to fill a buckets list. I'm only trying to fill 4 things. And a lot of successful people that I talk to really just say, it's all about perspective. If you can change your perspective, you can change your life. And when I did this perspective for myself, I started to see things a little bit more clearly as to what will make me happy. Am I spending time with my kids and my wife? Yes. Am I being able to um, sweat a lot? Yes. Like, if I can just say yes 4 times, then today is a good day. But if any point in time I say no to just 4 things, today was not a good day and I need to change something. And that's how I came across this particular concept of the Buckets blog. Now, I don't know if it's unique. There's probably something out there that looks exactly like this, but the way I've done this and the conversations that I've had feel like it hasn't been done before. Like, people aren't really thinking in this way, at least in my circle.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I super love the concept of your blog and your questions. And honestly, I keep thinking as soon as I get off here, I'm going to make my own list and make pick out my own 4 buckets and figure out how I can really relate that to what I'm doing now. Of course, I am, having a super awesome, great time doing the podcast and connecting with people and talking to people, but what about the other things that I'm really passionate about and that make me really happy? So, man, I think it's a hugely incredible concept, and I cannot wait to see what you do with it. One of the things that I was going to say earlier, and I kind of got off on my own tangent, was I wanted to do this series, and if you guys, I'm sure, don't know yet because I haven't told you, but what my vision for my podcast episodes with Roger is to follow him through his journey of how he decided to leave his job. He decided to start the Buckets podcast and blog, and really follow his journey through. Um, through this and doing the things that really mean a lot to him and are really important to him, and how he ends up making this work out for him in the long run, and how he ends up monetizing it, and how he ends up really reaching his goals in this process. So I'm really excited about it. I just know, just talking to you and being able to hear what your passions are and the things that are really important to you, and the way that you have your own spin on it. um I have zero doubt that this is going to become, it may not be the next Tony Robbins, but I definitely know that it's going to be something that is going to be able to provide for you and your family, and make you happy at the same time, and let you do things that bring you joy and happiness, and spending time with your family. So I'm I'm so incredibly excited to watch you go, to watch you move, to watch you um take the trail, take the road less traveled, and figure it out. It's going to be really exciting to watch.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I don't. My goal was never to. My goal was never to really attract attention. It was more of how am I going to be happy? Like if I can do that and I just so happen to get attention for doing so, then so be it. But um, I appreciate that you see what I'm trying to do. If no one else, at least you see in my inner circle. I mean, they've been very supportive of everything that I've done, but they see that this project, this venture has been the single most um, uh, milestone in my entire life. It is what what am I going to do to be happy, and how can I influence or persuade anybody else to do something as dramatic as this, if that's what we want to call it. But
Yeah,
just thank you for that.
I actually was gonna say, I don't even really think it's about, I know it's not about the attention for you. It seems way more likely that it's, of course, you're seeking out these answers for yourself, but then also taking all of those things and being able to teach other people what you've learned, and how to find importance in your day, and how to try, how to find importance in, um, there's the saying, how you spend your days is how you spend your life, right? And
Mhm.
you honing in and focusing on how exactly you're spending your day and how exactly you're spending your time, so that you can figure out when you're, 970 laying on your deathbed,
Mhm.
to say, man, I'm really proud of the things that I did. I'm really proud of the time that I spent with my family, and just really honing in on those things that are so important to you, and then teaching other people that they can't, not only should they do it, but they can do it. I just think it's hugely powerful, and I'm so blessed and excited to have gotten to meet you, and getting to follow you and watch you work it out.
Yeah, thank you. If anything, from your listeners, if they take anything away from this particular conversation, I hope that it is merely the question of why. Question everything that you do, from brushing your teeth to sitting in a meeting, asking yourself, why are you doing it? And if you can confidently have a reason for it, and you can support that reason, then keep doing it. But if you can't, if there's any point in time where you just don't have an answer as to why you're doing it, or you know why and it has nothing to do with um, the answer, like sitting in a meeting has nothing to do with the whys in your life, then you have to change something, because life is terribly short, and the last thing we want to do is live a life without an answer.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
live a life um without purpose, right? I mean,
mhm.
we're all seeking that purpose. We're all seeking to figure out why we're here, and I can guarantee you, you're not going to find it sitting in a pointless meeting.
Well, I got in trouble for this, so I don't want to take away. I don't want to take away from people's jobs who have meetings and have corporate jobs. Like, there are people out there who thoroughly enjoy that. So I do credit them for enjoying it. I sat in meetings for the past 6, 7 years, and I've seen people smile in these meetings, and they really do love it, and I envy that. Which is why I left in the first place, is because if I'm not smiling like you, then I need to go find a place where I'm going to smile as authentically as you are right now. And but for me, and probably you too, those meetings are not fun.
I like meetings if we're, like, actually gonna get something accomplished and, really hash it out or whatever, but yeah, you're right, just a meeting to tell me how we did last month, "Sweet, man, send me an email, we're good to go."
Yeah, thank you. Yes, those are one of the meetings I was referring to. Yes, I appreciate that.
Okay, so let's jump into a rapid fire. Real quick, I just want to say that I'm really excited about this, and I hope that in the next month or two that we can have you back on to kind of see how things are going and where you're headed, and if you've worked anything out as far as a job or income or just really getting to get your feedback on how the last couple of months have gone on spending time with your family and how it's changed your relationship with your family and things like that. So I hope that you'll come back and we can do this again.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me about a book, article, person, or talk that has changed your life.
The book that comes to mind is probably the first book that really set me on fire. Um, it's called Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett, and he's a professor, I believe, at Stanford or something like that. But the premise of the book, or the curriculum of the book, is really identifying three parallel lives that bring you joy, and those three parallel lives are probably your perfect career. And what you do is you write out everything as if you were living that life. And once you've reached the point where you can't write anything anymore, then you go and you have coffee with someone who actually does that job. So if I wanted to be a firefighter, a lawyer, and a mechanic, then I would go and have coffee with those three people. And if the conversation goes really well, then I know that I'm on the right path to finding my perfect career. And I read this thing 4 years ago. So the book was so good that I read it, that I remember it 4 years ago. And
Wow.
because of that book, it's one of the reasons why I choose to read so many other books. And I love reading, and it's ironic because I used to hate reading. I only read because it was part of the curriculum, or I was forced to do it for homework. But the minute I picked up a book by choice, which was just so happens that this was the book that I picked up, it really kickstarted every other book that I picked up for the next 3 or 4 years.
And it sounds like maybe even your blog too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So tell me about your favorite Friday night at home with your family.
My favorite Friday night, I guess it would be any other night. So Disney Plus is a big thing now. We I don't like tablets because I feel like there's just a bunch of content out there that is mind numbing.
Mhm.
But Disney movies, I feel like there's a sense of, if you really look back on a lot of the Disney movies, there's a lot of innovation and creativity behind those older Disney movies, and even some of the newer ones. But if you go back and you watch those Disney movies, you really start to appreciate the vision behind a lot of it. Like some of the early Disney movies, I noticed that there was a lot more orchestra, and they didn't have like sound effects, and they didn't have all these CGI and all that stuff. It was really just an orchestra, and violins made these door sounds, and um, the songs, the voices that they used back then were just different. Um, so I my Friday nights, or my every night really, is having at least an hour to watch another Disney movie, one of the classics.
I love that.
So yeah.
That's so fun. I love that. So tell me, what was your dream job as a kid?
Mm. As a kid, I wouldn't say a dream job, but something that really I was inclined to know more about was teaching. And ironically, I did become a teacher. But the reason why I was so fascinated with teaching is I realized that out of, high school is what, 7, 12, let's call it 12 years. Is that right? 5, 6. Let me do some math. 7 years. So 7 years of school. No, that's not right. I can't do math today. Anyways, elementary, middle school, high school, college, right? So all those years, I can only picture 5 teachers that I remember. And the reason why I remember them is because they cared about me. And because they cared about me, they were 10 times more engaging. They were 10 times more um, interesting. Like they were funny. They were goofy. They were serious when they had to be. And there is a science behind really good teachers. And because I was so fascinated with teaching, I also noticed that there is also a science behind public speaking and a science behind um, academics and really like early on, and this was early on, is when I started to appreciate all those things. So as I became a teacher, I tried to incorporate all those things that I was fascinated with. And it helped me have really good rapport with the students that I had. It helped me have a lot more confidence in talking in front of 30 kids or 30 staff members or anybody
Hmm.
because I figured out a little bit of that science. So
I love it.
teaching is underrated, and I haven't empathized with all teachers. So if you have teachers who listen to this podcast, I hope that they get much more credit than they do today.
Yes, I 100% agree. Teachers deserve all the credit in the entire universe because unfortunately they get stuck in the middle
Mm.
between parents and, the state and administration. Um, and it stinks because most of the time their hands are tied behind their back and they just have to do what's expected of them. And I completely agree that teachers are 100% underrated.
Yeah.
Totally. Tell me about the next vacation that you're planning with the family.
So we have my wife's cousin lives in Atlanta. Her brother also lives in Atlanta, and then we have a very close friend of ours. Their entire family moved to Atlanta. So the
Oh,
next
cool.
vacation will be to Atlanta. Now I will say, like, it's not the ideal vacation spot that I would immediately think of. But if one of my buckets is really to have those connections and family, then I don't really care where we go. So we're going to Atlanta just because we want to spend time with people that are loved ones to us. And
I
so
love that.
Atlanta is the place. Yeah, we don't know if we're going to drive there or fly there, but a 2-year-old in a van for 13 hours
Oh,
doesn't seem too appealing.
it's not appealing at all. Uh, um, I actually have somebody I wanna hook you up with offline, that is in Atlanta, and he actually does a podcast as well, and he's super great and super cool. His name is, Jesse Todisco, and he's actually going to be on my podcast here in a couple of weeks, so, I definitely
Cool.
wanna hook you guys up. He's in Atlanta, maybe you can go be on his podcast. I think that would be really cool.
Toe
Um,
Disco. What a fun is that his last name?
yeah, yeah.
That's a fun last name. Toe
Yeah.
Disco.
His,
Cool.
his podcast is the Jesse T Show, so you'll have to check him out.
Okay. Okay.
So tell our listeners, what is your best advice to help them live with audacity?
It is. It is to commit to taking action. Like take a step. I don't care what that step looks like. It is. It is just to take a step, because when you are not moving, you are essentially dying. And the more steps you take, the more you start to realize how much life you can live and how much happier you can be simply by just taking a single step.
I love it. I love that so
Yeah.
much. That's incredible. And I totally agree. Where can people find you to get more information on your buckets project and about you?
Yeah. So my buckets.blog is my website. I have a whole bunch of conversations with people, and I take notes of all the things that I really learned from that conversation. And then those conversations are posted on the blog as well as Spotify and Apple iTunes.
Awesome. Yay! I am so happy that you came on today. I just know that this is going to resonate with so many people, and I can't wait for people to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, I truly appreciate this, and if anything, it was a really, really fun conversation. So thank you for having me on.
Hey, y'all, I had to jump in here real quick because I need a favor. If you are loving the Live with Audacity podcast, I need you to do me a big solid favor and share it with your friends, share it on social media, and go to the Apple iTunes link and click subscribe, rate it, review it. I need to know your feedback, and I want to keep putting this out for you, so I really need your help to get the message out. Thank you so, so much for your loyalty and your super kind and sweet words. They mean so terribly much to me.